Oh, I'm very, very honored to be here. Thank you very, very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let's get rolling. Briefly introduce myself. My name is Marshall. For those of you I have not met, I'm from a small town called Valley Station, Kentucky. I went to a little engineering school, Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology, got an MBA at Indiana University, PhD at UCLA Anderson School. I was a college professor and dean when I was very, very young. Then for the past 44 years, I've done three things. I give talks or teach classes. So I travel all around the world speaking and teaching. My friend from Japan, I've been there many, many times. I've been to 102 countries. And on American Airlines alone, I have over 11 million frequent flyer miles. So when I flew out of the Nashville airport, if you go to the American Airlines Club, you will see my picture prominently displayed on the wall that says 11 million miles in the Nashville airport.
Yeah.
So I fly all of
You can
the
just leave that out for
I
now.
used to fly all the time. Then, of course, I coach people. I've been the coach of the CEO of Ford, Pfizer, Glaxo, the World Bank, the Mayo Clinic, Walmart, just on and on and on and on and on. And what I love about coaching is where I learn everything. And that's something that we're all very blessed. I mean, in coaching, in theory, we're supposed to help people. But from my experience, I've always learned far more from my clients than they learn from me. And then I write and edit books and articles. So I just did a little research today. I've written or edited, I think, 44 books now. Done 6 bestsellers, 3 big bestsellers, and 3 New York Times bestsellers. And my big S bestseller is What Got You Here Won't You There. That book has been ridiculously successful, sold about 1.5 million copies, and it's still amazingly successful years after it's gone out. You know, we just keep getting checks in the mail about this book. So it's been a really very, very, very successful book. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I went to a program called Design the Life You Love. The woman who put on the program was named Aisha Bursell, a wonderful person, one of the world's top designers. And she asked me a question. She said, who are your heroes? My heroes are very kind and generous people who are great teachers. And they were always so nice to me. Peter Drucker, Francis Hesselbein, Richard Beckard, Warren Bennis, my clients, Alan Mullally, just Jim Kim, wonderful people. And they never charged me any money. So I thought they're my heroes. She said, you should be more like them. So I decided to give away everything I know to as many people as I can, the time I have left to do it. Well, I'm 72, so I'm not going to live forever. So I'm using a model called knowledge philanthropy. All of my material you may copy, share, download, duplicate, use in church, charity, business, nonprofit, any way you want to use it. Now, also, if you want to change anything I teach, feel free. If you want write an article that incorporates anything I teach, feel free. Put your name on anything you want to. It's okay. If you need any approvals, just ask. If you need any approvals, just ask. So that's my goal. And I decided to give away everything I knew to 15 people. And the only price is when they get old, they had to do the same thing. So I made a little video and put it on LinkedIn. So I thought 100 people would apply. I'd adopt 15 and I'd stumble around and they'd laugh at my jokes and take notes, and then they'd get old and do the same thing. But I was wrong. So far, over 18,000 people applied for adoption. So now I've adopted about 300 people. The program is called 100 Coaches, and it's been just amazingly successful. And the rules are there's no money, there's no guilt, no expectations. The idea is people can ask you for anything, you give away to people as much as you can, and the only expectation back is you give to another person. So it's been a really very, very, very nice program. Also, my friends at IMS, Magda Mook is a great friend of mine. She's the president of ICF, excuse me. And we're getting ready for the Thinkers 50 Top Coaches Award this year. So the good news is I'm very excited about it. We've got a lot of great people. Magda's helping me out. And so I'm very honored. They named the award after me. So it's called the Marshall Goldsmith Award from Thinkers 50. So that's for the person who wins the award. Last year, Sonia and Chang won this from Duke. So it's also been a very fun project. So anyway, used to live in San Diego for many years, 30 years. I lived in the same house in Rancho Santa Fe. I've lived in Nashville now for a week. I am now a resident of Nashville. So if any of you Nashville people want to get together with me, you just send me an email. send me an email, and then we'll try to schedule some time. I try to take a walk every day I'm at home, and I love to go with coaches. So any of you would ever like to come visit me, you just feel free. All right, let's get rolling. Can we see the slides now? Ready? Okay, I cannot see the slide. Oh, there they come. Here you go. No, I see people's faces. Ah, are we ready? Good, I can see the slides. There was good news. If the slides didn't show up, I think I could carry the ball anyway. I've done this a couple times, so I think it would have been okay. So what are we going to talk about? Helping successful leaders get even better. What got you here won't get you there. There's my email address, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. Send me an email anytime. And then my website is www.marshallgoldsmith.com. I've got hundreds of articles, videos, everything. It's all online. It's all for free. Please use it any way that you want to use it. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Now, teaching leaders what to stop. One of my heroes was Peter Drucker. Before he died, I had the privilege of spending about 50 days with him. I was on the Peter Drucker advisory board for about 10 years. And I got ranked #1 leadership thinker in the world, #1 coach for many, many years. And Peter Drucker taught me a great lesson. It's easy to look tall if you stand on the shoulders of a giant. Well, this guy was a real giant. My intellect compared to him was that of a 10-year-old. And he taught me many wonderful lessons. One of the lessons he taught me is this: we spend a lot of time helping leaders learn what to do. We do not spend enough time helping leaders learn what to stop. He said, half the leaders I meet, they don't need to learn what to do. They need to learn what to stop. Well, that one comment led to my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's a really fascinating tool we can use as coaches. Next slide. Now, what are our goals? We're going to learn the classic challenges that come with success in leadership, how to use what to stop in coaching. We're going to talk about feed forward, and then I'm going to talk about the basics of my coaching process, which is stakeholder-centered coaching. I'm going to try to finish about 20, 30 minutes early, so we have plenty of time for questions. So please, if you have any questions, please send in your questions. Now, I just have one request. Don't ask me questions about politics. Don't ask me questions about strategy, marketing. I'm only an expert at helping successful people change their behavior. So outside of that, really, I try not to answer questions because I don't know that much. So any questions on my field, or any questions about me personally you'd like to ask? I've had a fascinating life. So any questions about me personally, just feel free to ask. And if I don't know the answer, I'll just say, I don't know. Okay, next slide. Now, classic challenges of successful leaders. Now I'm going to give you a challenge as a coach. I think before we try to apply anything to others, we need to know how it applies to ourselves. So as I go through these various challenges, I want you to think not about other people now. I want you to think about yourselves. I want you to think about yourselves, and do you do this stuff? I was interviewed in the Harvard Business Review and asked a question. What is the #1 challenge of the successful leaders that you've worked with over the years? What is their #1 challenge? My answer, winning too much. Now, what does that mean? If it's important, we want to win. Meaningful, we want to win. Critical, we want to win. Trivial, we want to win. Not worth it, we want to win anyway. Winners love winning. The people I coach are winners. And one thing I'm very proud of as a coach, my book triggers 27 major CEOs endorsed that book that I coached. Why am I so proud of that? 30 years ago, no CEO would admit to having a coach. They would have been ashamed or embarrassed to have a coach. Well, what I'm proud of is now coaching is seen as something that's important for great people, for winners. People I coach are winners. That's the good news. The bad news is hard for winners not to constantly win. Now, I'm going to give you a case study of winning too much that almost all of my clients fail. And then I want you to send in a note at the chat box and see if you failed this case study yourself. See if you perhaps failed this case study yourself. Are we ready? Case study #1. You want to go to dinner at restaurant X. Your husband, wife, friend, or partner wants to go to dinner at restaurant Y. You have a heated argument. You go to restaurant Y. It was not your choice. The food tastes awful and the service is terrible. Option A, you could critique the food. Point out our partner was wrong. This mistake could have been avoided had only you listened to me. Option B, shut up, eat the stupid food, try to enjoy it, and have a nice evening. What would I do? What should I do? Almost all my clients, what would I do? Critique the food. What should I do? Shut up. Now, how many people in the room have ever critiqued the food before? Raise your hands. Food, yes. Food critiquers. And was that food critiquing a smart option or a stupid option? Yeah, very stupid. Very stupid. I'm now going to give you a case study that's even more stupid than case study number one. And many people on the call will fail. Are we ready for case two? You have a hard day at work, a hard day. Yeah, I critique it even if I pick the restaurant. We have Judith, a massive food critiquer. Judith, stick to coaching, give up food critiquing. Case study number two. Now I'm going to ask you to test yourself. Here's the case. You have a hard day at work, a hard day. You go home, your husband, wife, friend, or partner's there, and the other person says, I had such a tough day. If we're not careful, what do we say? You had a hard day. You had a hard day. Do you have any idea what I had to put up with today? Do you think you had a hard day? We're so competitive, we have to prove we're more miserable than the people we live with. I gave this example to my class at the Dartmouth Tuck School. A young man raised his hand. He said, I did that last week. I asked him what happened. He said, my wife looked at me. She said, honey, you just think you had a hard day. It is not over. Now, yeah, leave your funk at the door. I like that one. Now, it's not over. I'm going to give you a great story that is in my book, Triggers. I got an email. I taught at Dartmouth many years, Dartmouth College. I got an email from a man in my class, and it was very nice. He said, I know you do not remember me. I was in your class at Dartmouth 5 years ago. He said, I want to send you an email today and just say thank you. He said, yesterday, I'd have a really hard day at the office. I was behind schedule. I was under stress. And my wife called. And she started talking about what a hard day she was having. And I was just getting ready to point out how her problems paled in significance to my own. For some reason, I remembered your course. And I stopped, started breathing. And I thought, this is my wife. This is someone I love. This is not the enemy. I just said, I love you. Thank you for everything that you've done for the family. I said, I went home, spent $25. I bought her some flowers. I gave her the flowers. I said, I love you. He said, it was the best $25 I have ever spent. Thank you. Well, the next time we get into that, let me win. Let me prove how smart I am. Let me prove how right I am. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and ask a question. What am I winning? What am I winning? Second classic problem for smart, successful people is called adding too much value. What does that mean? Well, someone says, it's a great story. Tell it to my husband. Second one is adding too much value. What does that mean? I'm young, smart, enthusiastic. You're my boss. I come to you with an idea. You think it's a great idea. Rather than just saying great idea, our tendency is to say, well, that's a nice idea. Why don't you add this to it? The problem is the quality of the idea may go up 5%. My commitment to execute this idea may go down 50%. It's no longer my idea, boss. Now it's your idea. It is very difficult for smart, successful people not to constantly add value. One of my good coaching clients retired several years ago. His name J.P. Garnier. J.P. was the CEO of a very large drug company, GlaxoSmithKline. I asked J.P., what did you learn about leadership as the CEO of this huge company? He said, I've learned a very, very hard lesson. He said, my suggestions become orders. My suggestions become orders. Now, I said, if they're smart, they're orders. If they're stupid, they're orders. If I want them to be orders, they are orders. And if I do not want them to be orders, they are orders anyway. My suggestions become orders. When you coach leaders, they need to know one thing. Every time they get promoted, more and more and more and more and more of their suggestions become orders. For 9 years, I trained the admirals in the United States Navy. What's the first thing I always taught the new admirals? When you get that star, your suggestions become orders. Admirals do not make suggestions. When an admiral makes a suggestion, what's the response? Aye, aye. That suggestion becomes an order. I asked JP, what did you learn from me when I was your coach that helped you the most? He said, you taught me one lesson. It helped me be a better leader and have a happier life. I said, what was that lesson? He said, before I speak, breathe, and ask myself one question. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? And he said, as the CEO of GlaxoSmithKline, 50% of the time, if I had the discipline to stop and breathe and ask, is it worth it? What did I decide? Am I right? Maybe. Is it worth it? No. I want everybody to breathe. Everybody, I can see your faces there smiling, smiling, smiling. Breathe, hand. Very good, very good. Now, I want you to think back to the last time you got angry and got into an argument with someone you love when you had a need to prove they were wrong on a minor or insignificant topic. Have any of us ever done that before? Yeah. Was it worth it? Do any of you have teenage children? Teenage children. Yeah. Have we ever attempted to prove the teenage child was wrong on a minor or insignificant point? How's that working out for you? Well, very important. Before talking, stop and breathe. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Next classic problem, passing too much judgment. 4 words that I try to teach my clients. I say, if you remember these 4 words, you'll be a better coach and have a happier life. What are the 4 words? Help more, judge less. Help more, judge less. How many of us have friends and family members that might be happy if we help just a little bit more and we judge just a little bit less? Help more, judge less. Now, everything I've said so far sounds incredibly simple, hard to argue with, very hard to do. Why? In our lives, we've taken test after test after test after test after test, thousands of tests. We had one goal: prove how smart you are. Over and over and over again, prove how smart you are, over and over. It's very hard to stop. It is very difficult to stop. It's difficult to stop proving how right I am. It's difficult to stop proving how smart I am. An important thing leaders need to learn is this: when you're at the bottom of the organization, maybe that's okay. Maybe you need to prove how smart you are. Every time you get promoted, you got to start letting that stuff go. For the great achiever, it might all be about me. For the great leader, it's about them. Very important to let go of that. I've got to be right and I've got to be smart. Next slide. Now, I have a fun technique I use with my clients. I use this today. It's called using small amounts of money to create large changes in behavior. Tiny little amounts of money to create huge changes in behavior. And this is very counterintuitive. Most of my clients are, at least I do a lot of volunteer work, but other than my volunteer work, most of my clients are extremely rich people. I mean, right now I'm coaching 4 people who are billionaires. These are not poor people. I charge them $20 for every transgression, $20, and it goes to a charity that they choose. Now you might think, well, rich people, I don't mind losing $20. That would be wrong. That would be wrong. Rich people hate losing money. It's amazing how well this works. One of my clients, I'm going, $20, $40, $60. He goes, this is expensive. I said, you made 35 million bucks last year. This is $20 going to a little homeless child. Shut up. He said, you're right. I'm an ass. Take 50, take 50. Now, my funny story occurred in India. In India, I have the privilege of being a coach of Mr. Jim Rao. Now, Mr. Jim Rao is a great guy. If you've ever been to Delhi, India, he built the airport there. He's a great, great guy. Bill Gates flies to India with Warren Buffett. And they're going to try to talk rich people into donate money to the poor. So my friend, Mr. Jim Rao, writes a personal check for $340 million and gives it to poor people in India out of his pocket. 340 million bucks, very generous guy. I'm working with him 2 days later. We're doing this game for $20 and the money goes to the same charity. I go, $20, $40, $60. He goes, this is expensive. I said, excuse me, you donated $340 million to this charity 2 days ago, and now you're carping about $20? I said, what's wrong with you? So he goes, oh, I forgot. I forgot. Now, how's he forget donating $340 million? I forgot. Let me explain the difference. My friend, Mr. G.M. Rao, in front of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and every newspaper in India, writing a personal check for $340 million and giving it to poor people. You know what that's called? Winning. Winning. $20, losing. He doesn't care about $20. He doesn't care about $340 million. What's he care about though? Winning. It's very hard for winners not to constantly win. Now let's talk about where I use this. One of the places that I use this is called no, but, however. With my clients, I find them $20 every time they begin a sentence with 3 words. No, but, however. When I'm talking to you and the first word out of my mouth is no. What are you saying? Shut up. But, what does but mean? Disregard everything you said. No, but, however. So one of my clients is stubborn. He got feedback, stubborn. So I'm reviewing his report. He says, but Marshall, I said, okay, that's free. If I ever talk to you again, it's $20 for your charity. He goes, but Marshall, 20, no, 40, no, 60, 80, 100. He lost $420 in an hour and a half. At the end of the hour and a half, he said, thank you. I had no idea. He got so much better as a listener, just learning this. Just don't start sentences with no, but, or however, and don't prove people are wrong every time they try to talk to you. Now, there's a variant on this that I'm going to share now with especially the parents on the call. Parents on the call. I want to hear if you have any guilty parents out there. I find my clients $20 if they say that is great, but. Now, this is a hard one for parents. The kid comes home from the report card with school. Daddy, mommy, look at my report card from school. 5 times I made the highest grade, and 1 time I made almost the highest grade. If we're not careful, what do we say, mommy and daddy? That's great, but why didn't you make the high grade every time? You know what the kid's thinking? That is great, but why do I have an ass like you for a father? Now, I've got 2 emails about this. Somebody said, oh, yeah, oh, that's my dad. Somebody's already still upset with the kid, but why did you get a C in PE? Oh, let it go. Michelle, hand, let it go, let it go, let it go. Your kid doesn't like PE. Life goes on, life goes on. Now, that is great, but I got 2 emails about this. One from a father, 2 days after my class. He said, I just lived the that is great, but case study. He said, my son came home from school with 5 A's and a B. And I remembered your talk. And I said, son, that's great. I'm proud of you. Then he wrote, my son sat there in silence. He continued. I said again, son, daddy is proud. Then he wrote, when are you going to start yelling at me? When are you going to start yelling at me? And the dad said, I'm not going to yell at you. I'm proud of you. The kid was so happy. Well, we say that is great, but enough times to the people we love, what do we teach them? There's no great. There is no great. All there ever is but. I got another email. It was worse. One gentleman said, I went to your class and I told the story about that other father to my family because I thought it was a funny story. So my son said, I made 5 A pluses and 1 A, and you told me that is great, but I've never been so hurt in my life. His son was the #1 student in the school, #1 valedictorian of his high school. One message from daddy, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. So when you talk, think about it. Don't say that is great, but. And then the final thing I worked on with people yesterday is I try to teach my clients, don't make destructive comments about other people. Don't stab other people in the back. Don't point out all their problems. before you speak, just ask, is this comment going to help our company, our customers, people I'm talking to and about? The answer is no, don't say it. We spend so much of our lives just bum rapping other people. It's important just to get in the habit of just don't do that. If there's no value added in talking, just don't talk. Next slide. Now, learning from a great leader. And I talked a little bit about this last time. In my role as an executive coach, I have a unique billing system. I don't get paid if my clients don't get better. And better is not judged by me or them, it's judged by everyone around them. This is called stakeholder-centered coaching. The client I coached that had the biggest improvement, guess what? I spent the least amount of time with. The client I coached I spent the most amount of time with didn't improve at all. So I made a chart. One dimension was time spent with Coach Marshall Goldsmith. The other dimension was improvement. There seemed to be a negative correlation between spending time with me and improving. I thought, this is troubling. So I go talk to my client that improved the most, who was the CEO of the Year in the United States, ranked number 3 greatest leader in the entire world in Fortune magazine, only behind the Pope and Angela Merkel. His name is Alan Mulally. He was the CEO of Ford. The stock went from $1 to $18.40, 1,837% improvement when he was the CEO. And he had a 97% approval rating from every employee in a union company, which is unheard of. An amazing man. One of my best friends in the world and just a great guy. So I go talk to Alan. I said, Alan, of all the people I coach, you improved the most. I spent the least amount of time with you. What should I learn about coaching from you? He said, Marshall, you got one challenge as a coach, customer selection. You pick the right customer, you win. You pick the wrong customer, you lose. And he said, don't make coaching about your own ego and how smart you think you are. Make it about those wonderful people you work with, how proud you are of them. Well, I got ranked number 1 coach in the world forever. Why? Nobody knows if I'm a good coach or not. Somebody worked with Alan at Boeing. He is a penny. He is a wonderful person. Penny, that's an understatement of the year. He is a great human being. Well, you know, why'd I always get ranked top coach? Nobody knows if I'm a good coach or not. You don't watch me coach people. I get the best clients. I got wonderful clients. And as a coach, my advice to all of you in coaching is work with great people. You work with great people who are dedicated and hardworking, your coaching will probably produce fantastic results. You work with people you don't care, you're probably just wasting your time. Now, let's see over here. Petra, is this a group of high ethics, character, and integrity on the call? Do you think so? Yes or no? Yes. She says, yes, they are. Yes, I'm going to test that. How many of you find coaches on this call? If the answer is yes, I want you to put yes in the box, and you're going to say what the impact was. How many of you ever tried to change the behavior of a husband, wife, or partner that had absolutely no interest in changing? How many of you have done this before? Yes, raise your right hands. Now I have a question. How's that working out for you? I'm seeing lots of yes, and it's not working so good. Let go, not working out. All right, now enough of that one. Now I got another question. I'm divorced now. Somebody said I gave up. I'm divorced. Another divorce. All right, now I've got a question that's even worse. How many of the fine coaches on this call? And if the answer is yes, you say yes. How many of you ever tried to change the behavior of mommy or daddy who had no interest in changing? Parental change agents. So I have any of that going on out there? Yeah, mommy or daddy. Yeah. I was teaching my class at Dartmouth and a woman raised her hand. I said, are you trying to change mommy or daddy? She said, daddy. I asked her, well, what's daddy's problem? She said, he doesn't have a healthy lifestyle. I asked her, how old is daddy? She said, 94. I said, leave the old boy alone. Want to smoke a cigar, old man, smoke too. Who cares? He's 94 years old. Well, let it go. Let it go. Good learning point about coaching is, you know what, if they don't care, just take a deep breath and let it go. And by the way, always remember this. Great is the need of the student to learn, far greater is the need of the teacher to teach. Great is the need of the client to be coached, far greater is the need of the coach to coach the client. What's one of my biggest problems? I like what I do too much. That's the biggest problem. Many of you coaches on this call, I don't think I'm alone. I'll tell you how bad I am. Sometimes I go on an 8-hour flight. 8-hour flight. Sometimes some poor man sits next to me. Poor fellow sits next to me. Sometimes he makes a big mistake. You know what he does? He says, "What do you do for a living?" 8 hours later, he's ready to kill himself. 8 hours of free coaching later, he's ready to kill himself. Well, very important before we start coaching people, ask that question: whose needs am I taking care of here? Whose needs am I taking care of? Okay, next slide. Next slide. Now, some of the people are saying, I'm not alone in this problem. Feed forward, ask people, pick one thing to change. And the feed forward project is then they're taught to ask people, give me ideas about how I can do better and learn from everyone around them. Next slide. Next slide. So in feed forward, what we're taught is everybody does two things. One, you don't talk about the past. You only give ideas for the future. And if you're getting the ideas, you can't judge or critique ideas. Now, I'm a Buddhist. Buddha said, only do what I teach if it works for you. It doesn't work for you, it's okay, just don't do it. Well, in feed forward, I teach my clients to ask everybody for ideas. Then they all shut up, listen, and say thank you. And they don't promise to do everything. They do what they can, and they do this over and over and over again. And, my friend Alan Mulally did this at Ford with everybody. Hubert Joly, who turned around Best Buy, fantastic leader. Frances Hesselbein, she was, Peter Drucker said, the greatest leader we ever met. You have some wonderful leaders who just do this on a regular basis, and they get in the habit of demonstrating some humility. Why? When you sit there and ask other people, please give me ideas, please help me, you're demonstrating humility, and you want to learn, and you're helping them want to learn. They're not ashamed to need help. Next slide. Now, how does the coaching process work? Well, step one, get in the habit of asking a question. What's that question? How can I be a better? How can I be a better friend, a better family member, a better coach, a better customer, supplier? How can I be a better? We don't ask this question a lot. Now, I was looking to see if I can see some of your faces, but I'm going to ask you a question. If the answer is yes, I want you to raise your hand. In your fine organizations where you work, now, Edie, I can see you there. If the answer is yes, raise your hand. Is customer satisfaction important? If that answer is yes, raise your hand. I see yes, many hands going up. You agree customer satisfaction is indeed important. Now I've got a second question. Should we ask our customers how we can do better? Raise your hand. Is that a nice idea? Ask the customer. Oh, very good. Everybody has hand up. And should we listen to these fine people? Listening to our good customers. Yes, very good. Everybody seems to agree with me here. That's all very good stuff. Oh, everybody's saying yes on the chat box. Very good. Now I've got another question. Have you been asking your husband, wife, or partner, what can I do to be a better partner in this relationship? Have you been asking your husband, wife, or partner, what can I do to be a better partner in this relationship? Well, usually the results on that were not quite as strong. Yeah, one said, don't have a partner. Well, you've got a good excuse. Somebody said yes, and somebody said, nope. Yeah. Now, okay, if you do have a husband, wife, or partner, you're going to use them. If you do not have a husband, wife, or partner, I want you to pick a friend or family member. Here's what you're going to do. You are going to send them an email, text, or you're going to send them a text right now. You're going to send a text with one question. What can I do to be a better partner in our relationship? Send a text. What can I do to be a better partner in our relationship? With no explanation, just send a text. Now, I've done this with thousands of people. I've got some hilarious responses. I literally have 3 cases where the spouse replied, "Are you dying?" I've got 2 that the spouse said, "Who are you sleeping with?" "Are you okay?" So, just send that text, send that text. Now, some of the people, if you have your hands up, I'm not sure that means you have a question, but you might. Now, there's someone who's Keith. Keith, is that you, Keith Miller? Do you have a question? Oh, no, you just had your hand up. Okay, that's good. Okay, now, very good. Now, by the way, after you send your text, put in the chat box if you get a reply back that's funny that you like to share with the group. Send your reply back in the text box, in the chat box there, because I get hilarious responses. Get in the habit of asking for input. Now, your husband said, LOL, what? Oh, Are you okay? Somebody said, are you okay to the partner? This is good. Send one to your kids as well. Even better idea. When my daughter Kelly was 11 and my son Brian was 9, I began asking my kids a question. What can I do to be a better parent? Well, if it's good to say, what can I do to be a better boss? How about what can I do to be a better parent? Well, guess what happened? You ask a question, you get the answer. My daughter Kelly said, Daddy, you travel a lot. That's not what bothers me. What bothers me is the way you act when you come home. You talk on the telephone, you watch sports, you don't spend much time with me. And she said, one time it was Saturday, I'm going to go to a party at my friend's house, and Mommy didn't let me go. I had to stay home and spend time with you. And then she said, you spent no time with me. That was not right. What could I say? Thank you. I said, Daddy's going to do better. I said, I'm going to spend 4 hours with my family and measure how many days I can spend 4 hours. 1991, 92 days. 1992, 110. 1993, 131. And 1994, 135. Now it's January 1, 1995. Daddy's proud. Both kids are teenagers. I said, kids, look, 131 days, 4 hours with 135 days, 4 hours with Daddy. What goal next year? How about 150? They both go, no, Daddy, no, you have overachieved. My son said 50 is a much better target. They both voted for massive cutback of old dad. I learned a good lesson. When they're little, it's good to do this. Why? They need us. When we get older, it's important for a different reason. We need them. We need them. And any of you on the phone that have adult kids, how fast did those years pass? Just like that. Good to do this stuff at work, even better at home. I was teaching a class for a company called the Kaiser Permanente Company. Kaiser Permanente Company, and a woman named Trudy Triner raised her hand in front of 1,000 people. She said, I've been to your class twice. I've read all your books. There's something you've always left out. Teach people that ask this same question, how can I be a better to their parents? To their parents. She said, after your class, I asked my daughter, what can I do to be a better mother? And she said, we had a very, very nice conversation. Then my daughter said, how can I be a better daughter? She said, well, that's nice. I should call my mother. She said, I called my mother and asked her, what can I do to be a better daughter? Then she said, my mother said, Daddy's dead. I live alone in the country. Every day I take a long walk up the road to go to the mailbox, and almost every day there's nothing in the mailbox. And every day that makes me lonely. It would mean so much to me if you'd send me a picture or card or something. So when I would walk to the mailbox, I would find something in my mailbox. She started sending her mother little pictures and cards every day. What did that cost her? Nothing. What did that mean to her mother? Everything. She sent me an email about 3 years later, and she said, my mother just died. My mother just died. And the last thing her mother told her was, thank you for doing that. If your parents are still alive, this is a real nice thing to do for 3 reasons. One, they'll be happy you did. Even if they say you don't have anything to improve, they'll be proud you cared not to ask. 2, one, it's good for them. 2, it's good for you. What's the number one regret children have when mom and dad die? Why didn't I thank them for all the nice things they did help me? Why was I judging them all the time? And then number 3, if you have little children, this is very good for little children. Why? You know, the old people you're calling up on the telephone? Guess what? You're going to be the old people. You want your child calling you up on the telephone? Your little child is not going to listen to what you say. Your little child's going to watch what you do. Our values are not what we say. Our values are what we do. Now, I want everybody to just write in the chat box, who's one person in your life you should be asking this question, how can I be better to? Could be at home or work. Who's somebody you should be asking this question to? Somebody said, my son, my husband, my fiance, my parents, my partner, my dad, my daughter, my sister. You know, whoever that is for you, I have a suggestion, do that. Nobody can tell you who that is for you but you. whoever that is for you, just do that, do that, do that. And that's something I don't think you'll regret. After we ask for input, the next step in the process is listen. And the first thing we want to do is the last thing we should do. What's that? Ask for input, then express my opinion. If I ask you for input and start expressing my opinion, what's that sound like? Defensiveness, denial, rationalization. Fight that urge to talk and just listen. And then the next thing is think. Think about what people have to say. And fight that urge to punish the messenger and just get angry. Just stop and think and thank people. Thank people. And don't punish people for telling us the truth. Don't punish people that have the courage to tell you the truth. Now, let's raise your hands again. I'm going to look at your nice faces. Would you agree with me we should encourage people, as leaders should encourage people to tell the truth? Would you agree that that's a good idea? Yes, very good, very good. And how about punishing the messenger? Would you agree that's a very bad thing to do? Very bad. Punish messenger, very, very bad. Everybody agrees, very, very bad thing. Now, I'm assuming the fine coaches on this call, you all wouldn't punish the messenger yourself, because obviously that'd be a very bad thing to do. Now, I'm going to give you a test about punishing the messenger. We're going to see how you do on this test. You're going to have to write in the chat box. Yeah, don't shoot the messenger, somebody said. Okay, are you ready for your own test? You have a hard day at work, a hard day. You go home. Your husband, wife, friend, or partner's there. You get in the car. You're driving to the store. Lots of traffic. Cars are cutting in front of you. That person in the front seat goes, "Look out, there's a red light up ahead." Did you say, "Thank you, thank you"? Or perhaps something that sounded like, "What do you mean there's a red light ahead? Don't you think I can see? I know how to drive this car. Why don't you be quiet and let me drive this car?" Oh, look at these guilty, Petra, the guilty looking Petra. I see that. Oh, yes. Guilty looking woman. Our host looks very, very guilty. How many of you have ever punished the messenger before? Yeah, exactly. Oh boy, somebody said that's my ex-husband's reaction. That's funny. Now, I was teaching my class at Dartmouth. The man said, I got an embarrassing story. He said, my wife was always correcting my driving. I said, never correct my driving again. I'm sick of you correcting my driving. Don't do this again. They said, I'm so embarrassed to say that 2 weeks ago, I ran right through a red light, and hit 2 cars. Fortunately, no one was hurt. He said, the first thing I did, looked at my wife, said, why didn't you say anything? Now, the next time you're driving, that person corrects your driving, you're going to go just like this. Thank you. Thank you. Now, send me a note. Why do we scream at that person in the front seat instead of just saying thank you? Send me some of your concepts in the chat. Why are we screaming at people instead of just saying thank you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I've gotten some good words. Some of it. Yeah. A lot of good words. Let me give you the 2 that stand out for me. Pride and ego. Too much pride and too much ego. And do we pay a price later for that prideful and egotistical outburst? Yeah. Yeah. We pay the price for that later. Let go of that pride and ego, and life is better for everything. Ask, listen, think, respond. Now, I don't know much about much. I know a whole lot about how to respond to 360-degree feedback. So if you ever get 360-degree feedback yourself, or if your clients do, here's exactly how I teach people to respond. Positive, simple, focused, and fast. I'd say, thank you so much for the feedback. Overall, I'm very happy with what I learned. I feel good about this and this and this. Here's what I'm going to do better. For example, I want to be a better listener. Then I ask them to practice feed forward. Don't ask for more feedback about the past. Ask for ideas for the future. Ask for ideas for the future. And then be quiet and listen and thank them for the ideas. As a leader, I teach people, don't promise to do everything. Promise to listen and think about people's ideas and do what you can. And then say stuff like, I can't promise to do everything. I'm going to listen and do what I can. And I can't get better at everything. I just got one thing I can certainly get better at that, though. And I'm going to involve you and ask you to help me get better. Involve those people and then change. I've been in business for 12 years before anybody asked me what I consider to be the great existential question. What was the question? Does anybody ever really change? Does anybody ever really change? I looked at the gentleman. I said, I have an undergraduate degree in math, PhD in organizational behavior. I have no research to prove this. So I guess the real answer is I don't know. Good question. Well, for the last, I don't know, 28 years, I've been answering that question. Now I do know. I know who changes, who doesn't change, why people change, why people don't change. The key to making change last for leaders is you have to follow up and stick with it. What's follow up sound like? Well, Ms. Coworker, 2 months ago, I said I want to be a positive and open-minded listener. Based on the last 2 months, give me ideas for the next 2 months. It's been 4 months based on the last 2 months. Give me ideas for the next 2 months. It's been 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. Now, what happens if you follow this very simple process? Or what happens if leaders follow this? Well, next slide. This is a study called Leadership as a Context Board. And by the way, this is available at my website, or I'm sure that your organizers can send it all to you. 86,000 participants. We've replicated this now with 248,000 people. There's no country in the world this doesn't work. There's no industry doesn't work. And it works all the way from the CEOs I coach down to first line supervisors. Next slide. In our research, every leader got multi-rater feedback. They were asked to pick focus areas for improvement. Talk to people about what they learned, just like I demonstrated with you. Follow up, just like I talked about. And then we did a mini survey to measure where they're seen as becoming more effective, not as judged by themselves, as judged by everyone around them, their key stakeholders. Next slide. What did we learn? Well, what we learned is when people did no follow-up, -3 became less effective, 0 didn't change, +3 more effective. Improvement looks slightly better than random chance. I did a control group study. The control group did this well. These people might as well have been watching sitcoms as have a coach or get training. They didn't get any better. Next slide. When people said, my coworker did a little follow-up, a little better. Next slide. Some follow-up a lot better. Next slide. Frequent follow-up, much better. And finally, consistent or periodic follow-up, massive improvement. Well, these people all went to the same program, taught by the same person, me. They got feedback on the same process at the same time. What did I learn? And I tell my clients, if you get better, it doesn't have much to do with me. It's got everything to do with you. If you get better, it doesn't have much to do with me. It's got everything to do with you. If you got the courage to ask for feedback, the humility to admit you can improve, and the discipline to do all this follow-up, you're going to get better. And if you don't, you're probably not. And there's not a whole lot I'm going to do about it one way or the other. Very important as a coach to recognize we're successful because we have clients that work hard to try to get better. And if we're not, if they're not, we probably won't. Next slide. Now, follow-up is the key to making change last. And it's very difficult for leaders to stick with it. Most training has no follow-up. That's why coaching is so good. You're following up with people. You're not just talking to them once and hoping they have a religious experience and get better. Next slide. Changing perception. Now, it's harder to change perception than it is to change behavior. Changing perception is very hard. In my coaching, I don't get paid if my clients don't get better, but better is not judged by me or them, it's judged by everyone around them. Once we have a stereotype of what a person is, it's very hard to change that stereotype. For example, let us imagine that my problem is I make too many destructive comments. I picked that because it seems so simple. Now, Dorothy, you're my coworker. I make too many destructive comments, but I don't talk to you and I don't follow up. I just say, well, I just quit doing this and the problem's going to go away. I go 7 months and never make a destructive comment about anyone. 7 months later, I say, stupid SOBs, idiot bean counters, how to be done in companies run by a bunch of stupid accountants. Dorothy's reaction is, he never changed. That one comment will trigger the previous perception, you never changed. Case study number 2, I talked to Dorothy. Dorothy, I want to be a great team player, not make destructive comments, give me ideas. She doesn't necessarily believe I'm going to change. But what happens 2 months later? We'll say, Dorothy, it's been 2 months. I want to be a great team player, not make bad comments. Give me ideas for the next 2 months. Now Dorothy thinks, you're doing a good job. It's been 4 months. Good job. 6 months. Great job. 7 months. Stupid SOBs in finance. The coworker says, you shouldn't have done that. You went 7 months without doing that. So you're right, I'm going to apologize. Situation A, did behavior change? Yes. Did perception change? No. Situation B, did behavior change? Yes. Did perception change? Yes. In leadership, it doesn't matter what we think we said. In leadership, all that matters is what they hear. All that matters is what they hear. Now, if any of you have a Roman numeral watch, don't look at your watch right now, but if you have a Roman numeral watch, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I'll just ask you 1 question. I'll make it simple. If you have a Roman numeral watch, what does the 4 look like on the face of your watch? Don't look at the watch. Just write down. What does the 4 look like? Roman numeral 4. Okay. Very good. Almost everybody said IV. Now, if you have a Roman numeral watch, look at the 4. What's the 4 look like on your watch? Look closely. In most cases, it's not an IV. It's 4 eyes. We don't see what's there. I've done this exercise with people that own the same watch for 40 years and looked at it every day and never saw it. Why? We don't see what's there. We see what we think is supposed to be there. We see what we think is supposed to be there. Next slide. Now, it's okay to need help and structure. One thing I'm very proud of is changing the entire role of coaching from the fixed loser model to the help winner model. Very, very important. And I think it's very important that our clients get the feeling it's okay that I need help. It's okay that I need structure and getting over this shame. Now, our stakeholder coaching process, when does it work? It works if the issue is behavioral, not intellectual, technical, or functional. Person's willing to try. They're going to be given a fair chance. If the leaders I coach go through this process, they almost invariably get better. They almost invariably get better. And if they don't, they don't. Now, I'm able to work around the world, and I'm not an expert on the companies I work with at all. Why? As a coach, I am a facilitator. I'm not a person who teaches people what to do and how to do it. I largely facilitate learning. Most of what my clients learn, when I say most, the huge majority of what my clients learn, they don't learn from me anyway. They learn from all the people around them. So my job as a facilitator is I try to help my clients who are great leaders learn from everyone around them, not be an expert who tells them what to do and how to do it. Now, let me stop. We've got about 15 minutes left, and now it's time for questions. Now, I want you to ask me some good questions. So send me some questions. Is there like a Q&A? The chat box, I guess. Send me some questions in the chat box. And who Petra, are you the person that's going to help me with the questions?
Marshall, it's Michael. I'll be helping you with the questions.
Good, Michael. Send me some questions in the chat box. By the way, so many of you sent notes to family members and friends, and I got so many nice comments back. Some of them were very sweet. Some people said, I love you. There's nothing you can do better. So, some of them were surprised. So anyway, what are your thoughts on positive psychology? I'm big on positive psychology. I think it's a great idea. I think the thoughts are very good. In positive psychology, in the last book on the topic, he talked about 5 things were important. Totally independently, came with 6 things were important, but basically they're virtually almost identical to the same thing. How do I help an executive who is resistant to change? I'm already so successful. Well, everyone I coach is ridiculously successful. They all get feedback. Now they have a choice. I said, look in the mirror. If that's the person you want to see in the mirror, you don't need me. You don't need me. If that's not the person you want to see in the mirror, I can help you. This is not up to me. This is up to you. Do you want to change or not? I never make anybody do what they don't want to do. If they don't want to change, goodbye. Goodbye. That's their choice. Okay. Different countries. In my coaching, I work all around the world. And I find this coaching process works in every country. And that research studies people from all around the world. One reason is you don't have to be an expert on their culture. Why? They learn from people in their culture. So I teach leaders to learn from everyone who's already in their culture. I'm not an expert in the culture, and I'm certainly not an expert on the company, which is, by the way, many times like a separate culture. I cannot be an expert on the Red Cross, Walmart, Ford, Glaxo, Pfizer, the New York Stock Exchange, the New York Public Library. I cannot be an expert on this stuff, nor do I try to be. I'm a facilitator who helps people learn from people around them. That's why I can work in so many different countries and so many different industries, and it works fine. What are your biggest coaching foibles? My biggest failures, my own ego. Every time I failed as a coach, where's the problem? It is right here. My own ego. What is the biggest problem of the coach? Of all the coaches I've trained, ego of the coach. Why? We believe people are going to get better because of me. Wrong. Every time I fail, where's the problem? Look in a mirror. I've learned a very hard lesson as a coach. My name is Marshall Goldsmith, not Jesus Christ. I can't save people that don't care. And every time I've tried to get into that savior mode, I got it into nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble. How about the pandemic? Someone said. To me, the pandemic has been great for coaching. I mean, as a coach, yesterday I was in Miami. I'm working with the CEO of a large organization there and his team. And he said, well, what about the one-on-one coaching? Because I was there and I worked with the whole team. He said, well, just use Zoom calls. He said, I think it works just as well as one-on-one anyway. So I have met this year, I did a process called LPR, Life Plan Review, with 50 amazing leaders every weekend. My friend Mark Thompson and I put in 350 hours over the pandemic working with people. It was 100% Zoom calls. They loved it. Why? We worked with groups of people from all around the world. I would have never done that if it hadn't been for the pandemic. I think the pandemic's been good for coaching myself. I think Zoom calls have been great for coaching. Okay.
Marshall, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There was a question around the multi-rater tool, and they just wanted some more information about that.
Well, what I do personally is I interview everyone around my clients. So I conduct one-on-one interviews. I'm charging my clients a lot of money. When you pay $25,000 a month, that's a lot of money. So I interview everyone around my clients and what are they doing well? What do they need to do better? What are their unique organizational or systematic factors? On the other hand, I think you can use any good 360 feedback tool and get about 80% as good results. I don't really try to sell one tool. I mean, I've developed them myself, but Jim Kouzes developed the Leadership Challenge tool, which I think is fantastic. I think there are a lot of great tools people can use, and they pretty much all work. The problem is not the best 360 feedback tool. The problem is, what do they do after they get feedback? You can use a mediocre tool. If they get feedback and do something about it, they're going to get better. You can use the most sophisticated tool in the world. If they don't know anything about it, it's still a waste of time. Okay, next.
There's another question here about, as you were speaking earlier and you were talking about changing perception and behavior, and someone was just curious around what other information you might have on that or resources.
You know, let me just give you a couple of guidelines in terms of changing perception. The further out the measure is, the longer the change lasts. The further out the measure is, the longer the change lasts. And that's pretty simple stuff. But Michael, if I worked with you for a week and people saw you getting better, well, that's nice. But there's not a lot of indication that's going to last. My clients I typically work with for a year and a half and measure, do they get better? A year and a half is judged by other people. I'm not saying that's perfect either. Yet it's pretty good. Typically, a client would have an average of 18 key stakeholders. I'm working with them 18 months later. These 18 people see them getting better. That's kind of a big deal. Okay.
Thank you. There's a little bit of a futuristic question. What are the new practices and trends to keep an eye on in the coaching field over the next 10 or 20 years?
Well, I think there's obviously going to be a huge impact on technology. Well, let me tell you what I'm doing personally. Are you all ready? Is everyone ready? What is coming down the road? My friendly MarshallBot. MarshallBot is coming. What is MarshallBot? Well, I don't know if any of you have seen a video bot before, but I've got a wonderful group of people. I want to give away everything. Now, I'm going to be dead, not that far off into the future. I mean, everybody says, oh, I'm sure you'll live a long time. I'm healthy, but this show doesn't go on forever. I'm creating a video bot. I'm programming the video bot with artificial intelligence. The video bot is going to learn to answer questions. I'm going to teach everything I know to the video bot, and then hopefully teach other people's knowledge to the video bot. I'll give them due credits, of course. And little Marshall bot, I'm going to teach all I know so that when people have questions, they can talk to a little Marshall bot. And my theory about life is this: the real Marshall, as I get older, I'm trying to get dumber and dumber and dumber, and Marshall bot gets smarter and smarter and smarter. So it won't be too long for Marshall bot's a lot smarter than I am. So my goal using technology is to develop my little video bot, which is coming. And by the way, the next ICF call I do, it may look like me, it may or may not be me, it may be little Marshall bot talking to you.
The big question is, will it take a walk with us?
Yeah, will it take a walk? I'm not going to have Marshall the robot yet. So this Marshall bot just a video bot.
There are many questions in here, and so we will not get to all of them, I do not believe. But what are your thoughts around a coach who also consults, or is it better to just coach?
I don't like to get into semantic pissing contests.
Mm-hmm.
So people say, what's a coach and what's a consultant and what's a leader and what's this and what's that. And, I just assume people define words the way they want to define them. And when I work with people, I just give them my definition. And when I'm a coach, I help successful leaders achieve positive long-term change in their behavior. That's not the only type of coaching in the world. Now, my friend Magda, one thing she's talked about at ICF, which I think is very, very positive, is that the definition of coaching has become much broader. And now there are many more approaches to coaching, and I think that's great. So, I don't really get into a lot of semantics. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, I study Buddhist ethics, shift from an I and let go. What have I learned from Buddhism? My coaching is very heavily influenced by Buddhism. I'm a Buddhist. My coach is largely Buddhist. Now, when somebody says they're a Buddhist, it doesn't help you much because there's so many schools of Buddhism. My school of Buddhism, and I've read 400 books on Buddhism, so I'm sure I know more about Buddhism than coaching or leadership or any of this stuff. My school of Buddhism is quite simple. Buddha was brought up very rich and protected from the world. As a kid, he was able to escape from his little bubble 3 times. First time he learned, you get old. Second time, you get sick. Third time, you die. You get old, you get sick, and you die. Shit happens. He went out in the woods and he said, I can't be happy with more. His father kept trying to give him more and more and more. He thought, I'll be happy when I have more. He learned I can't be happy with more. He went out in the woods and kind of starved himself and lived like a hermit. What he learned, can't be happy with less. What did Buddha finally realize? I can't be happy with more, can't be happy with less. I can only be happy with what I have. The only time I can find happiness and peace is now. The only place I can find happiness and peace is here. Where's nirvana? Not out there. Listen to some old bald guy talk on a Zoom call. This is it. Not next week, not next month, not next year. It's not out there. It's all in here. It's all in here. Let me finish with my favorite coaching advice, which you may have heard it before, but I always like to share it anyway. And it's my best coaching advice to everybody. And it's everybody smile, smile, smile. Take a deep breath, hand. Oh, hand. Very good. Smile, breathing. Oh, now I want you to imagine you're 95 years old and you're just getting ready to die. You're on a deathbed. But right before you take that last breath, you're given a beautiful gift. The ability to go back in time and talk to the person that's listening to me right now. The ability to help that person be a better coach, better leader, much more important, have a better life. What advice would that wise, old, 95-year-old you who knew what mattered in life and what didn't, and what was important and what wasn't? What advice would that old person have for the you that's listening to me right now? I don't want you to say anything or do anything or write anything. Answer a question in your mind. Whatever you're thinking now, do that. In terms of a performance appraisal, that's the only one that's going to matter. That old person says you did the right thing, you did. That old person says you made a mistake, you did. You don't have to impress anybody else. So friends of mine interviewed old people who are dying, got this question, what advice would you have? Answers from old people on the personal side. First one, 3 words, be happy now. Not next week, not next month, not next year, be happy now. Great Western disease, I'll be happy when I get the money status, BMW condominium, I will be happy when. We all have exactly the same when. That old person is when. Learning point from old people, I got so focused. I got so focused looking at what I didn't have, I could never see what I did have, and I had everything. Many of you on this call are among the luckiest people that have ever lived. Many of you have friends, you have family, many of you have health. Compared to me, most of you have youth. You've got it all. Don't get so focused on what you don't have, you can't see it. Learning point number 2, friends and family. Your career is important. Don't get so busy climbing that career ladder, you forget the people you love. It's not worth it. Always remember your friends and family. And the third one is, if you have a dream, go for it. Because you don't go for it when you're 35, you may not when you're 85, and it doesn't have to be a big one. Go to New Zealand, speak Spanish, play guitar. Other people would think it's goofy. Who cares? It's not their dream, it's your dream. It's not their life, it's your life. I had a very embarrassing experience a few years ago. I was teaching my class and I said, go to New Zealand, speak Spanish. The guy raised his hand, he said, we're in Spain, you idiot. Business advice isn't that much different. Number 1, life is short, have fun. And you coaches out there, I'm going to help you. If you can't have fun coaching, you're not going to have fun in finance. So life is short, have some fun. Number 2, a real blessing for all you coaches, do whatever you can do to help people. A great blessing to be in this field that you get to help people. And main reason to help people has nothing to do with money or status or getting ahead. Main reason to help people is a lot deeper, that 95-year-old you is going to be proud of you because you did and disappointed if you don't. Final advice, go for it. Coaching's changing, your world's changing. Do what you think is right. You may not win, at least you tried. Old people, we almost never regret the risk we take and fail. We always regret the risk we fail to take. And finally, as I've grown older, my mission in life has kind of gone down and down and down, but my level of impact's gone up and up and up. I quit worrying about what I'm not going to change. Now, let me give you my goal on this call. It's real simple. Help you have just a little better life. And maybe help you help the people around you have just a little better life. Some of you have a little better life based on the call. It's a good call. Thank you.